as Melissa said, thank you everybody for coming. It's great to see so many people here who have an interest in, and I hope will continue to have an interest in these issues of surveillance and privacy and technology. What I wanted to do is run over some existing bills that are out there right now, and maybe a thing or two that we would like to see in the future, that we would like to work with all of you and elected officials around Ohio to accomplish here. It's been a very good first several months of this session. I'm very heartened by the amount of attention that's being paid to these issues and the growing number of legislators who are really getting active on these particular things. And it's not a partisan issue by any means. We've been working with Democrats and Republicans, both who have a strong interest in this. So that said, for instance, one of the bills out there that we support and hope that you do too is Senate Bill 45 by Senator Tavares. That one would prevent employers and assorted others from requesting, or I should say demanding, Facebook and social network passwords as a condition of either an interview or employment. And we think that's an unfortunate growing trend around the country that we would like to put that genie back in the bottle. There is also, at this point, two drone bills, that is unmanned aerial vehicles as they're called technically. A lot of people have been paying attention to this drone issue. Drones are the wave of the future for a whole wide variety of uses. The problem is that at the state level and at the local level and at the federal level, there are really no restrictions as to what somebody uses a drone for. And so we're very glad to see that Representative Dan Schroeder has introduced House Bill 207. A very strong bill, I think, can be made even stronger. We'll be meeting with Representative Dan Schroeder later today about that particular bill. And we've also worked very closely with Senator Jordan to introduce Senate Bill 189, another drone bill to regulate drones. These include such things as a warrant requirement for when drones are to be deployed. Senator Jordan's bill also discusses a reporting requirement for when drones are used. There's a report back to the General Assembly about the uses of drones and what exactly they were used for. It provides for administrative discipline, and it also does not allow for the weaponization of drones, something that a lot of people aren't discussing right now. But for instance, when you hear law enforcement and police talk about how useful drones will be for a variety of purposes and refer to officer safety, you have to wonder, will this include weaponization of drones in the future, like we see them being used in the foreign policy arena? So we would love to see those changes made to House Bill 207. But hey, look, we've got two drone bills out there right now in the first few months of this session, and I think that's a great accomplishment. Many of you may have heard about Senate Bill 5. Not that Senate Bill 5. This is Senate Bill 5. It's called Kelseys Law, and the intentions are very honorable, the original intentions. This is somebody goes missing, and perhaps law enforcement can track them down through their cell phones. Because if you have a cell phone or a smartphone these days, of course, what you essentially have is GPS also, and people can be tracked down through the possession of their cell phones. So the bill originally is when there is an emergency circumstance. Law enforcement does not have to get a warrant to track down that information. Generally speaking, the ACLU is okay with that. The Fourth Amendment allows for these exigent or emergency circumstances to get this information without a warrant. But we thought, what about those situations when it's not an emergency? What we know, because we've conducted a national study reaching law enforcement all across the states across this country, is just like with drones, there are no policies out there, there are no regulations. It all depends on the individual department. But as far as state laws go here in Ohio and in other states, there's almost nothing out there with regard to this. So law enforcement is free to get this information without a warrant as it currently stands. And your cell phone location information reveals an awful lot about who you are potentially, where you travel to, who you visit, and that's very concerning to those of us who worry about what law enforcement does or could potentially do with this information at the local level, certainly the state level, and the national level, because as we've seen both before and after Edward Snowden, the federal government does some very worrisome things with this information. Finally, and very briefly, it's also been revealed that the Attorney General's office has rolled out facial recognition using driver's licenses and mugshots, and what I anticipate will be a whole lot of other data, whether it's surveillance cameras and what have you. There's a work group right now working on this particular issue. I think what would be prudent and necessary is to enshrine the good recommendations that they come up with into state law, and also look at how the federal government fits into this facial recognition scheme, and perhaps legislation to address that also. So that's a crash course on the legislation that's out there. I didn't even get to automatic license plate readers and legislation we'd like to see about that, but we can certainly talk about that. But suffice to say, when it comes to privacy and surveillance and technology, there's an awful lot out there to work on, and we hope to work with all of you to move Ohio forward and make it an example for the rest of the country.